Welcome to Power Hour, where the editors of Powersports Business interview the movers and shakers of the industry. This episode is brought to you by Synchrony.
Hey everybody, it's Brendan from Powersports Business, and we've got two very special guests today. We have Susan Medrano from Synchrony, and we have AJ Meisel from Plano Kawasaki. Is it Plano Kawasaki? What else is it? I always say
Suzuki Kawasaki.
Yeah, there's a lot on there. You got a lot of lines in it. Vespa, Kawasaki, Suzuki. Great dealership. We'll start off with Susan. Susan, give me a little background. I know you head up Synchrony's outdoor division. Tell me a little bit about what you do and what you like about it.
Sure. So my name is Susan Medrano, and I have been with Synchrony for 25 years. I like to say I started when I was 3, but that's probably not, really accurate. So, but
4, maybe, yeah.
Maybe I was 4, yeah.
Yeah.
I lead Synchrony Outdoors. I absolutely love it. It's a really great business. I get to enable people like AJ, who is a part of a great family-owned dealership that enables people to go outside and do the things they love to do every day. And as part of that, I love being a female leader, and I know this is all about female ridership and, how we play a role in that. I'm very, very passionate about lifting women up and enabling women to be who they want to be and achieve the fullest extent of what they want in life. And so it's been a passion of mine for many years. And I do a lot of mentoring, and I get to work with amazing women like AJ.
That's awesome. Yeah. And AJ, I've been down to your deal. It's been a couple years, but you run you're the owner of the dealership. Tell us about your background and what you do, what you love about it.
Well, I'm the general manager at Plano Kawasaki, Suzuki, Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Piaggio. I say that all really fast.
That's a mouthful.
I know, it's like supercalifragilistic, right? I'm not that interesting. I just happen to be in a really fun industry, and I have been for 33 years now. That's kind of exciting to say. But I've been a passionate motorcyclist for 44 years, which means, that tells you how old I really am.
You're not that old. You don't look that
Again,
old.
I'm not interesting. I haven't had a big career like Susan. I've been right here in North Texas, just doing our thing. But we have a really fun and exciting industry that we get to be a part of every day. And just like Susan, I love empowering women. It's been a life, like kind of a life thing for me. Prior to doing a lot of motorcycle stuff, I was also a female firearms instructor. So only coaching women, but really just super passionate about our industry and what we do. Also, I'm excited to get to talk to everyone today.
That's great.
Let me tell you something, a little something about AJ. She's small, but she is mighty. She could take on a few and win. Let me tell you.
I guarantee it.
Oh, they just say dynamite comes in small packages. That's all it is.
That's
She
right.
is feisty and fiery, and
Yes, that's it. You have to be when you're little.
But and that's what makes this industry so fun, and there's a lot of characters in the industry, and AJ fits right in. But now, you guys being women, we're celebrating International Female Ride Day, which is May 3rd. By the time this comes out, we're in April. This will come out probably after that event takes place. But, overall in general, we're also talking about the women's market in power sports, and what, not only like growing as far as like inside as leaders, but also empowering and finding ways to connect with women customers, female customers. So AJ, like, how, what is it that you do that is maybe different, or that you look at as far as like trying to encompass a female customer or an employee or anything that like that?
I don't think that there's a lot of magic in it, Brendan. I think that being a female leader in our industry, we have females that work here also. There's 3 of us here, but we all ride. And I think it starts with that. And that attitude kind of starts from the top down. So our male employees are used to dealing with women because they have to deal with us all day. And so there's not really a boundary of male versus female on the showroom floor when a lady walks in. As a matter of fact, in some cases, I think the guys probably prefer the softer approach, because the women come in and they're inquisitive. They ask a lot of questions. Women as a rule are rule followers, and they want to know about safety. They're not talking from an ego. They haven't been reading the internet and want to say everything that they know. They want to learn, and they want to be included on.
Not mansplaining everything.
No, it's really more relaxed. They're excited and they show excitement. Like, women are like, yay, we're so excited to be here. Like, I've wanted to do this my whole life. And when you're met with that same enthusiasm, it's like dogs with wiggle butts. They're just excited to see each other. And that's the way women usually are when they come in the door, and they don't hide that. And so I think it starts with that first greet on the floor, but you have to make it an environment that makes it feel that way. Like, you come in the store and, even as far down as the ladies' room, our ladies' room has to be tidy all the time, because we do want to cater to that lady rider. And if it's a lady that comes in with a spouse or a partner, we want it to feel warm and inviting, all the way around. So, it really just starts there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a big key to it. Like, I mean, just simple things like a clean restroom, a nice inviting area that, if women, I don't know. Now in Texas, do you guys say gals? You guys say gals? Is that?
I still say gals, but that's kind of an older term. I don't think
it is an old. Well, my uncle always said, he wasn't from Texas, but from. Yeah. But I always hear that like gal, that I always feel like that's a Southern kind of, or maybe a West, like a Texas thing, maybe. But,
hey, listen, there is nothing wrong with that. I still call myself a Texas gal.
Yeah.
And I say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. I have had people tell me that's offensive, and I'm sorry that you're offended by that, but it's a term of endearment for me, just like honey, darling.
Right. I see that 100%. I don't think that it's anything derogatory, but and I do think that having women have a little different, like you said, men come in and they just want to, beat their chest. How much horsepower does it have? How, they just want to get on, and a lot of the bikes too are there's a lot of bikes geared more towards men than women. We've actually there's one of our website, we have a women riders website that one of our top stories is about bikes under 30 inches or less. And that's it month over month that gets so many views because people are looking for the smaller bikes, and I'm a smaller guy. I'm not, I'm like 5'7", okay, maybe with my hat off 5'6", I don't know, but I can't fit on a big bike myself. So I look at it like, I'm in a lot of the same boat as women riders in a lot of ways, because I'm not going to ride some of these giant bikes, Yeah,
I think that there's a lot of truth to that, but I think too that kind of like Susan, I know Susan can back me up on this. Like, I know Susan is like me. We weren't told that the sky's the limit. Like, I can remember getting my first motorcycle and riding it, and then I can remember my dad telling me that I could go ride a street bike when I was 15, and they were tall and they were heavy 44 years ago. I mean, they were big, and I'm 5'2.5" on a tall day, and my dad told me I could ride it, so I could, right? Like nobody told me that I couldn't. And I think that when we get past that thought process that we can't do something, and Susan was talking about this prior, we've got that mentality. If we can't do something, we'll never be able to do it. But I can tell you that, not to be brand specific or anything, but I can ride anything on the showroom floor, and I'm tiny. And I think that if we get through that,
You've got
once you learn,
several bikes, like
yeah,
a couple of sport bikes that you track day and everything that, so you got scooters, you got everything.
everything,
So
yeah,
Yeah.
and we get that experience and that time under our belt, we can do anything. And I think that having the lower bikes is a great entry level, but that doesn't mean that a woman has to stop there. She can do anything she wants.
right.
Yeah, I would tell you that, I grew up in a household that at the time was not real normal, where my mom actually made more money than my dad. And, when I was growing up, that my dad, by the way, I'm just going to lay this foundation, was my hero.
Yes.
So no shade to my father, but my mom had the bigger job, and she role modeled and told me regularly, and frankly, my dad told me regularly that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And I think you don't always get that. And I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I want her to know she can be whatever she wants to be.
Right.
And so if that means she wants to ride motorcycles, she can ride motorcycles. If it means she wants to be, God help us, the president of the United States, she can do that too. Not that I would want that for her
I
right
would
now,
stop her
but
from that. I might let her
yeah.
ride a motorcycle, but
I might, yeah, I might discourage her on that. Like, she might actually discourage herself on that right now.
yeah, yeah.
But, um, but the reality of the situation is that I had a role model all my life that told me I could do what I wanted to do.
I think that's important too, having that role model and the and the
My kid just showed up by, and that was me
oh,
shaking
I
her
got
away.
you. Yeah, yeah. Hey, that could be the viral moment where they come in. There was that CNN guy that did the
Yeah,
video from Japan, and his kid came in, and his wife, that went
yeah.
viral.
That's fun.
Yeah, I usually just have my dogs bark. Anytime I'm on a call, the dog will start barking, and yeah, it goes from there. But no, I think role models are important for everybody, having mentors. So you now, Susan, being a leader of, you've mentored and helped, develop a lot of women in the industry. Tell us a little bit about what your thinking is behind that, and what how your role is with helping women grow in the industry.
So I've also been very fortunate in that the former CEO of Synchrony was a woman named Margaret Keene. And Margaret would tell the story about, and Synchrony, we were born out of GE. And, GE was an interesting company to work for 25 years ago. But Margaret would always talk about the fact that people took chances on her for jobs that she really probably shouldn't have had. And that made a profound impression upon me. That before earlier when we were talking, I was talking about a book I read, that there was a promotion that I wanted. And I read a book by an author that really had a massive impact on me, because it really spoke to the fact that women tend to talk in our own heads and tell ourselves we're our own worst critic, to be honest. And we tell ourselves why we can't and why not me. And the guy doesn't do that. The guy's like, it should be me. And so when I read that book, I really thought, you know what? Why not me? And it completely changed the way that I thought about my approach to asking for the job, the way I talked to people when I was going through the interview process, because I was just myself, and I felt like I sort of owned the fact that I deserved what I was asking for. And I see in myself a big responsibility to give that back to somebody else. And so I participate in a lot of events within Synchrony around mentoring women who are entry level employees, or maybe they're mid career, and making it a focus. And it's one of the things that I've made a focus, is being when I look around the power sports industry, it is very male dominated. And, as I started attending, either visiting dealers or going to some industry events and saw, male after male, I really wanted to kind of rally around when I met a woman, understanding what they're going through, what's happening. And that's led us to do a few things, like we had our first Power Sports Summit last year for women. We just did a big event at AIM where we did a networking luncheon, and we actually had to turn people away, but we had over 125 women participate in that. And what a great place to be, where you've got Empower Sports enthusiasts and you have 125 women in the room.
Yeah,
So I
that's
really
amazing.
try to lean into things like that, where I feel like I can make a difference, and I truly do want to lift women up. And I want my daughter to know she can be whatever she wants to be.
Does she want to ride motorcycles? Would you?
Hey, you know what? She doesn't know what she wants to be at this
Yeah.
point, Brendan. I keep trying to figure that out, but
Well,
I think
at
I'm more
12 years
focused than
old,
she is.
yeah, hopefully she's got a little bit of time to figure it out.
He does.
Yeah. I never thought I'd end up being an editor. I mean, I wanted to be the race car driver and the motorcycle racer, and here I am, like, oh, I was like a C student in English, but my parents were very good at, they
I
were,
wanted to be a lawyer. I'm
yeah,
now a banker.
yeah, right. So, you end up, but at the same time, there's certain things that lead you to where you're gonna go, and
Yeah.
that lead you to that pathway. AJ, I mean, did you think you would be running a motorcycle dealership, being a dealer principal and owner at,
Fun fact, no, I was
when you
going
were like 10?
yeah, when I was going to school for design, and thought that I wanted to be a designer, and because I love architecture, but I was also a motorcyclist. So prior to that, I had always ridden. And so for me, I was shopping for a motorcycle, and got offered a job as an F&I girl. So if you don't know what that means finance and insurance. And back in the day, there was not finance and insurance departments back then. It was kind of a new thing for our industry. That was kind of a car industry thing that the bigger dealers had started adopting. And so after some consternation, I took the job, and I made a silly offer. Well, you'd have to pay me this much. And it was a really low amount, but I was a college girl. I didn't know. And but I started working in our industry, and I just loved it. And after a year of doing school and working in our industry, I just knew that this was it. It's like when you meet that true love, this is the one.
Right.
And so I quit going to school and started focusing more on leadership and management type courses instead of focusing on college, because college didn't keep my focus anyway. And I still love architecture and I still love design, but I love motorcycles more.
I can see by the design of their background, I love the cabinet. You got like just the right amount of toys on there.
Yeah, that's right.
I would, if I turned the blur off of my camera, you'd see the disaster behind me. I try to do, my design is no design. It's like, oh God, I'll just set it here, But yeah, I mean, I think that it's crazy how when you find that kind of calling, and it doesn't matter, I'm sure that you had a lot when you were young riding, but getting on, but I mean, you probably had a lot of people going, what, you're riding it, or
I don't know. We started riding back, I was in a small town. And so, I was just another kid, right? We didn't have stereotypes, and there wasn't all of these parameters. And again, my parents didn't teach me to have boundaries of things. So I just didn't know. And then, I got a street motorcycle, and I used to ride my boyfriend on the back, but I didn't know that wasn't the right thing. I just was, I mean, it was fun.
I hate to see that, AJ.
I wish there were photos of that. That would be amazing.
Just a horse around every once in a while. Jason gets on
Yeah.
but we really don't do that anymore. But I just think that I didn't know anything different. And I say this all the time to women. I don't know about that fear of getting your first motorcycle, but I do know that freedom that I can't describe any other way other than from riding, that it clears the head and there's nothing else on my mind when I'm on my motorcycle. There's 44 years of riding, and I have 8 in the garage. It doesn't get old. It's still enthusiastic. I told you guys I can't believe we're filming this because I literally have been.
You've been out riding today. Yeah.
Yes, I was. I was test riding motorcycles for customers. I got motorcycle helmet hair. In this industry, it's normal.
If that's motorcycle
Right.
helmet hair, AJ, I'm signing up for that every day, because that does
Yeah.
not look like motorcycle helmet hair.
But it's just our life. It's what we do. I was telling you guys about, having a motorcycle in my living room for the last 2 weeks, putting performance modifications on it. So I think that it's just our lifestyle. And the women that are experiencing that, we've got 20% women as a percentage now. And,
That's
I think
grown quite a bit from,
it's a
I
lot.
think maybe 10 years ago, it was down, it was like below 15%.
Right.
So,
And now I can remember when it was 8%. And, I can remember getting these videos from the manufacturer, and I won't name any OEM names, but they were almost insulting. It was like how to sell a motorcycle to a woman. And I'm like, what's the difference? Like, we're not like a child,
Right.
You talk to us just like you talk to anyone else. You just need to listen more,
Yeah.
The old adage was pink it and shrink it, and it's
We
like,
don't even really care about pink, that's
yeah, like there's a lot of women that don't even, there's more guys that probably like pink than these days than,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
So pink doesn't really, but at the same time, it's like, oh, and then, so yeah. And I think on the apparel side, there was a lot of apparel that was just
Yeah.
basically shrunk down like kids clothing or something, or,
Well, and that is
wasn't designed
that's-
well for,
So, and that's true. Women, we want stuff to fit, right, Susan? Like, it needs
Yeah,
to be.
we do.
And, back in the day, I can remember getting, a Hein Garrick jacket, men's jacket, and I had to have it altered at a saddle shop to make it fit me. And now we have all the gear for women, and we need the safety gear because women are more oriented towards safety.
oh yeah.
Think about that. We want that full-faced helmet because, we don't want anything to happen to our face. We don't want anything to happen to our head. Road rash isn't sexy for ladies.
That's right.
No, yeah, that's true. I think that I will also argue that women are a big push behind men getting safety gear because,
That is true.
I know 100% my mom and my wife, if I don't have gear on, I'm hearing from, and I do ride with gear all the time, but I don't always wear like, every ounce, I always have the helmet on and usually a jacket, but it's one of those things where, yeah, women are much more safety conscious. They want to wear the gear, and the gear should look cool. And I think that has come a long way as well. Like there's some companies out there making some nice looking gear that appeals to, the fashion sense, the design sense that women, guys. I'm sure there are some guys that have design sense, but at the same time, we're just like, yeah, I'll wear it. Oh, that, yeah, I can buckle it, okay. Yeah, we don't have that same, at least not me. I don't get it. I don't proclaim to get it. My wife hates the fact that I have no design understanding. She's like, well, you're going to wear that? I'm like, why not? It fits,
I do
So,
think
but
that's one of the great things. That's one of the great things about more women being involved just overall is you start to see product evolve. You start to see all of the sundry products that go with the bigger products. And honestly, it's just nice to like, why not women?
Yes.
yeah.
And I think that average age, our average demographic for a female rider is late 30s. And so
Okay.
they're already career oriented and they're
Right.
educated and, they're not children and they're kind of paving the way for the next stage of their life. And,
Yeah.
I think that probably has something to do with the growth
Definitely an
that we see.
empowering thing.
Yeah.
I know like I've mentioned before, I've worked with journalists. I've worked with a few women journalists that have been amazing, and they're like leader, just amazing women. But one in particular, Elisa Clickinger, I'll mention her by name, but she led a lot of like women's riding tours for different causes and across the states, and just the people she would gather. And I brought my wife to one that was they had a stop at a racetrack near me in mid Ohio. Brought my wife down there, and she's not, she won't even ride with me on anything. I mean, she'll get on, like, if it's got three wheels, she's okay, but two wheels, not so much.
Yeah.
But then she saw these women riding, was like, you know what? I want to ride. She wanted to learn how to ride. And I think that gives testament to, like, hey, when you see other women doing this, it's an empowering thing. It kind of snowballs.
100%.
Yeah.
And
we host women only events also. Brendan, because you've been to some of our events, but hosting women only events that we talk about things that guys just don't talk about, like the saddle and how uncomfortable it is, and what's the ride apparel to wear to be comfortable, and how to tie up our hair to put underneath the helmet.
That's a big one, actually.
Yeah, because running a brush through longer hair is it's a nightmare, right? And then how to pack for longer trips. And there's just things that we'll talk about that that you're just not going to get around a group of male riders. And honestly, it's really interesting because when we have women only events, we do like skills type events, but also events where we're teaching, mechanical things about motorcycles. Yeah. And women come, but the men come too, because they really do want to learn the same things. And but it's kind of, it's like being around a group of guys. It's just not quite the same.
If women are just guys, you're afraid to ask questions that you would
I was going to say
normally
that,
want to know, but you're afraid to ask because you don't sound, I had a buddy that I worked on a racing team with, and he asked crew chief, "What's a spark plug?" And the guy, but it's a legitimate question, but at the same time,
he create the same environment.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just it's really, we're really getting there. When we don't have to stand up for it, it's just organically happening. And I love seeing it. We are so invited.
I think that's one of the cool things is I think that this is organic. I remember, 10 years ago, there was a big push to try to get more women riders, and, a lot of things going on like industry wide, for associations and groups. Now it's happening organically. Like there are people pushing for it, but it's like, this is just happening because people, and, there are avenues to do it. I think this International Female Ride Day organization, which is, we should mention, May 3rd, even though that'll be in the past, but it's an important thing where, it kind of groups all these, rides together, kind of like that distinguished gentleman's ride, that goes across 50, or even ride to work day, all these kind of things kind of help, but, it just brings the attention to a group that is, a demographic that is growing, helping to grow our industry and having a major part. And whether or not a woman rides or not, I think that's important, but I believe that women are also a huge part behind a lot of the purchases in power sports anyway, because look, if you're a family person, it's got to go, if you're buying a side-by-side, for a 4-seater side by side, you're probably having to work it out with the, hey, is it okay, family wise, or what's the decision there? You can't just make that. I have learned the hard way not to just buy things without
without a conversation.
Without a conversation, yeah. I've learned that one, because she's like,
Haven't
Yeah.
I
we
bought
all?
a car
I'm
once for
sure.
my wife thinking oh, you need a car and this was a great deal. She's like, I don't even like the car. It doesn't even fit me right. I can't even my seat. I'm like, but it's a 5-speed. She's like, I don't even want a 5-speed. I'm like, okay, you're right. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kept the car, but for me.
So
But
you got a new
that's the
car.
thing. There's a lot of decision making that goes involved, not just with women riding, buying their own bikes and riding themselves, but also as a family, involvement. And a lot of times that's a big deal. You got to get and it would be the same thing I think for a woman buying, if maybe she's married. If she didn't ask her husband, I mean, it would be, you would probably want to have it be both ways, I think. But so yeah, I mean, I think this is the organic nature of this demographic, that's growing 20%. I could see it easily 25% in the next 5 years,
There's,
maybe.
there's no doubt. Yeah, social media. There are a lot of in our area. We're in the Dallas and Fort Worth area of Texas, and there is a huge growth for women riders, and they have their own groups.
Yeah.
So some of them ride with the guys, and then they have their own little break off groups, and there's a lot of them, and they get together more than just the International Rider
yeah.
Day. But I know that this group has been doing this for, a long time. They've been meeting up for a long time and hosting these events, which I just appreciate and love.
I know
And
there's one
respect
in
so
like a
much.
Dallas Superbike, or sport bike group that gets
There's a
together.
bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a bunch of them, but there's also quite a few groups of ladies in our Metroplex, and then also in the Houston and San Antonio area that ride, that are just women. And then they host some events. And I mean, we've had them come, I've had women that ride come all the way from California to come to some of these group events, which I
That's
think is
awesome.
really shows
That's
the
That's
impact
awesome.
and the desire to want to meet up and collaborate. We women want to be around other women doing women things. And it's not that they don't like men or whatever, but women, like Susan was talking about, really enjoy lifting each other up and,
a bonding thing. I get it. I mean, men bond, why can't women bond? It's the same
Right.
deal. I mean, men go out on group, whatever, you can name all the stereotypes that we do, and we do it. We like, but I mean, I think that it's just as important for women to be able to do that too.
and they
to
all
not necessarily, yeah, and then not, you don't have to have men around to be, I mean, do your thing. And I've often felt like I've showed up at some of Elisa's rides and stuff, and maybe, well, there's usually a couple other guys there, but I'm like, oh, these, I'm the outside, I'm just here observing. I'm the writer. But it to see the enjoyment that everybody has, like riding and going on these adventures, it's empowering.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
I can't even imagine what it would have been like at 100 years ago when, women riding across the country, and you had some of these like women in like the World War I era, delivering mail and packages and things like that on motorcycles, and roads that were the conditions, that they were. I can't even imagine what that would have been like, but I can also see that helped pave the way for,
Yes.
Oh, for
where things
sure.
are.
Those women are my hero for sure.
Yeah.
I think I was talking to a lady this weekend, and she was pretty feisty, and she's quite a bit older than me, and she was talking about the way things were when she was young, and she had to fight for women's rights. And I'm in my mid 50s, and I have seen some of that, but not as much of it as some of the women, prior to us, and how they fought for our rights and our abilities to just make decisions and do the things that we take for granted some days and have the freedoms and liberties that we have. And, I think that motorcycling just embodies that, right? That freedom and that ability just to do whatever we want and be whoever we want. Susan's daughter can be whoever she wants.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's amazing. The more it goes back to if you see it, you could be it, and
Yes.
somebody had to be first. And so the women that came before us enabled us to be where we are today, and we're going to enable that many more behind us. And that's what really jazzes me up every day is, the great team I get to lead, but also, just being passionate about women and letting them be who they want to be, whatever that means.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And it's amazing. Like I said, it's amazing to see this natural organic growth, because so many things, you look, and it is a lot. Social media has a lot to do with it. And I see a lot of, influencer types or whatever, but you have to see it to believe it. Just like who was there, when I was in high school, there the woman, the astronaut that went up into space, and she was in the Challenger, I guess, blew up, but she was a teacher in Akron where I live.
Yeah.
And just the fact that, wow, I mean, there was a teacher female, I think that, and now, I mean, there's women astronauts, there's all kind of, we just had one that was up there for like 6 months or whatever, that she, and it's amazing that now I think it comes down to like gender isn't really, that's not really a big thing.
Oh, it's not.
No.
And I actually think that it's more fun to work at places that have, now I've worked on a lot of male dominated, like I said, I've been in car racing where it was all guys, and believe me, when it's all guys, it gets pretty down and it gets bad, but I also worked on a racing team where we had one of the only female pit crew members that went over the wall, and she was a badass. Like she changed tires, went over the wall and she was one of the toughest people on the team. You didn't, so you see stuff like that, you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. It's more a matter of like determination of what you want to do, right?
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, I think, you said something earlier about how women tend to think like why I can't do things. Now I'm more probably that type. I'm more of a negative in my head. We all have different thoughts in our head, but I'm more like I got to clear out all the cobwebs and the bad thoughts. But I think that the self-doubt is maybe more prevalent among women, but it's also one of those things that once you see it, you can overcome it, and then you get empowered to drive forward. And
we're our own worst critics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important that women mentor women, because we can help eliminate that and tell them why, it's okay.
Yeah.
Or why they deserve it, probably more importantly.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
No, I agree.
Thanks for doing
I'm probably
this
the wrong guy to be doing, but I mean, I see it. And my mom's like one of those real strong, I mean, she's only like 4'8" or whatever. She's tiny, but she's like a bulldozer, you don't mess with her. And she, I think being that I saw her as someone that even as small and she was just mighty, and nobody messed with her. You know what I mean? So that type, you just got to keep focused, and and I do think women have a better way of talking. Again, I'm the guy in the middle here, but when you guys get together and talk, there's a lot of things that are communicated that we don't. We're oblivious to it. So, but yeah. Well, hey, this has been great, guys. I really have enjoyed talking to you both and understanding your situations, and just really putting a focus on this this demographic, in the female ride day, which again is probably going to be passed by the time this comes out. But at the same time, it's an important milestone to remember, I think, and to see where the organic growth of this market is and where it could go. So it's not something that dealers and, the industry can just turn their eye, close their eyes on. It's something that is a growing segment that needs to continue. So.
Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for, shining the light on women in this space. Listen, I think it's nothing but a great thing. And, we get to work. I love that I get to work with women like AJ every day.
And likewise, I really feel that way too. It's a blessing and a gift to get to share what we love with other people that, specifically women that may just have tipped the iceberg on their intrigue and are looking forward to doing something for themselves that's new and maybe a little scary. And if I could just give any advice, it's just start slow and, do it the right way with all the safety in mind of taking a class and
take a class for sure. I mean, I think that's a good start right there. Take a class, see if you like it.
Yeah.
In fact, when I did a MSF course, I'd already been writing, but I thought I knew everything. Of course, I didn't. But there was, at least 2 or 3 other women in my class. And I think it was interesting just to see how, there were some that were much more, timid about, the bike and everything and just getting up to speed, But it's important to, if you take the class, see if you like it, for one.
Exactly.
And feel comfortable with it. And then, go from there. But well, thank you guys so much. This is, like I said, been great talking to you both, and we'll have to reconvene again before, maybe, before the next ride day. But I want to hear, hear some more stories the next time. So.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, share 'em.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We also invite you to connect with us on powersportsbusiness.com.